Hi, welcome to another Better Conversations podcast with the founders. We are just here to have conversations on the everyday things we see and apply our youthful wisdom to share our thoughts. I'll hand over to Paul to introduce the topic for today.
Hello, everyone. So, the topic today is decision making and difficult decisions. So, what we're planning to do is we're going to share a few scenarios that we faced in our past that are very difficult decisions for us. We're going to share our decision making process and how we got through it, and then apply it to a difficult decision we've had in the future. And the aim of this is to help share with you guys how to navigate yourself. We're not saying we're perfect and we don't get decisions wrong, but I think it can add a bit of inspiration for you to know how other people make difficult decisions, and then you can find your own way, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm going to hand back to Tavian.
Yeah.
Off you go. Tell us about your first difficult decision.
Yeah, so we did prepare this obviously before the podcast as well. So we're not obviously doing this off the fly, but I think it's good as well because some of these were like these two decisions that I guess we're going to both talk through as well are definitely some of the hardest ones I think I've made so far in my life. So the first one was definitely around the time when I just finished my GCSEs and it was sixth form and choosing what sixth form I actually wanted to go to. Now it sounds like quite a simple decision for maybe most people don't overthink it too much, but the reason why this is quite a difficult decision is because firstly, Paul actually introduced me to another sixth form, the London Academy of Excellence. I'm pretty sure I can say it. Introduced me to another sixth form, London Academy of Excellence, and I was currently in just my normal school at the time, and I applied for that sixth form as well. And that sixth form obviously had some high standards to get into it, and I was also sort of thinking of going to it as well, but I wouldn't have known anyone at the time, and it would have actually been quite difficult to adjust because I'm guessing all the people in there, from my assumption anyway, all the people in there would be extremely bright, extremely smart. They would like be driven and pushing themselves, and I never really thought of myself as someone like that. I mean, if you watch the first podcast that we did, you know that I wasn't particularly the best behaved person in school. I didn't really care too much about school until like year 10, year 11 time. So I wasn't really striving for excellence, should we say, like in my head anyway. So I did go ahead anyway and actually like put in an application for LAE at the time, but I didn't actually get an offer. So once I actually received my grades and I realized I actually got the grades to get in, it was at that moment where I actually had to be like, should I go to the school on the day? Because they had like an open day where you could go in and actually just apply ahead of people that didn't actually get their offer. And there's normally loads of people that don't, because teachers just predict teachers predict their students crazy stuff, and then and then they don't end up getting it. So when I realized I didn't get a grade, it was at a moment. It was like, should I actually make the trip to LAE and actually like put in my application, knowing that I could probably with these grades like definitely get in on the subjects that I want, or should I just just stay with like my friends, stay in an environment that I know, not incur cost as well on my own life, because to actually get to LAE I would have to get trained every single day, whereas with the current school I was in I could just get bus, and at the time Oyster was free and stuff, so free school travel. So it was like I had to really make a decision at that moment, and it felt like it was quite an intense moment actually, because I went back in the car with my mum. I showed her my grades, and she knew in the back of my head, like, I had two options, whether I can go to LAE, try get in, or I could just stay at Davenant. And I was thinking, and actually, for me, I think it was the first time in my life where I actually made a decision to step out of my comfort zone. Which was actually.
Would you say that is that where is that the sacrifice that you're making? Is that what made the decision hard?
Yeah. I think it was. Yeah, not to say that I haven't between that time I hadn't definitely made decisions to step out of my comfort zone. I mean, obviously I was 16 at the time, so there's obviously situations where I actually stepped out of my comfort zone. But all of those things were more for none of those things really had, let's say, significant impact on the direction of my life. So I did air cadets as well when I was younger, and obviously there was loads of times where I decided to step out my comfort zone there, like jump into
Yeah.
water from wild heights and stuff. But none of those things actually had like an impact on my life. It was more like my own character building. But this one actually would change the trajectory of my life. You know, it was either I was going to stay with my friends, probably go to uni with some of them, because I was going to stay in that school, stay in that area, or I was going to like take a complete venture, like completely away from them, and actually have to make new friends, build new relationships, and also get used to like a new schooling system in a place that's surrounded by people that are probably much more intelligent than I am. So it was like that moment to make that decision was actually quite pivotal for me, and it was probably the first decision I made that actually, held a lot of weight in the trajectory to where I was going. So, yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very nice. To get back over to me for now. Difficult decision that I made was to. It's kind of similar to yours actually. Early stage of life, so it's to do around education. Mine was to move to Bristol. I remember I made the decision. I was sat at a train station. I was sat in the rain. It was raining. I didn't care because I was just so down on life. I realized that my grades for A levels weren't good enough to go to the university I wanted, to University of Bristol, or I had offers for Southampton, I think Warwick. In my applications for university, I got offers from every university I applied to. So I was really excited to choose which one. But when I realized I didn't have the grades to go, I was bummed out. It was a hard moment for me because I realized I wasn't the straight A student that people expected me to be, and the one that I thought I was. So I wasn't in a good emotional state of mind right there and then. I remember you said that you were planning to go to Bristol because of your degree apprenticeship.
Yeah, degree apprenticeship, yeah.
And I decided I already had my friend of the podcast, T Sayal. He was already in Bristol too, at the university, at a different university, not the University of Bristol. He was at the University of the West of England. So I called them up and I realized that I could still get an offer to go to Bristol. And I had to make the difficult decision of, do I still leave London and go to university I've never heard of? Or do I stay here, continue to focus and, find another way to navigate? And I eventually chose to move to Bristol. I lived with you and I went to Uni of T. And the reason that was a difficult decision for me, because I gave up my home comforts, my friends, the large group of my friends here, gave up seeing my family, and the comfortability of knowing what London is, traveling into the city. Uni life for some London students, if you're not, how should I say, if you're doing okay financially, uni life for a student in London can be very, very nice. But I moved away from that, moved to a place where we lived by ourselves. We had to cook for ourselves, all of that, and it was a difficult decision at the time. And I made it knowing that I needed to find a way to grow. I didn't want to continue being the same Paul I was that failed to get the grades I needed to do well in life. So I was like, what's the saying? You only change through putting yourself. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's the saying. Once. I'm sorry, bro. We're gonna have to edit that out.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. So
Yeah,
you're at the part where you said you only get sorry,
you
you
have
have to
to
get
get
comfortable.
comfortable being uncomfortable, and with that, I chose to go to join you in Bristol, essentially.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah,
Nah, interesting. So I guess we can definitely now I guess talk through how we actually decided to make those decisions.
yeah,
Um and actually so I've only really actually realized this probably recently actually, especially when it links to the second one as well. Um the second big decision I made. But I think the way I actually make decisions is I think about the repercussions like over maybe like a long period of time. And I think about, do I make that decision every single time over this long spell of time? So to break that down really like simply, I think so. Let's fast forward a year. You know, does that decision remain the same? And then let's fast forward 2 years. Does it remain the same? And to be honest, you can probably only see sort of 4 to 5 years, I guess, in terms of your trajectory, in terms of where you think you want to be. So I wouldn't try to go like 10 or 15 years, because I genuinely don't know where I'm going to be in 10 or 15 years. Um, but you can do it for shorter time periods. So when it came to choosing my sixth form, it was sort of like, well, let me think about where I might be sort of mid A level. Do I make the same decision? And then sort of going into uni, do I make the same decision? And then like sort of maybe second year or third year of uni, do I make the same decision basically? And I realized that actually the decision to stay with my friends, stay in that area, remain sort of comfortable, wouldn't wouldn't actually be a reasonable decision to make across that time period. So, for example, like when I was in the middle of sixth form, then yeah, I'd probably still make the same decision because I'd be with my friends. But then, like once I finish, sixth form and I'm applying to university, actually the decision's not going to be based on comfortability. And I wasn't actually planning to stay in London anyway for university. I was actually always planning to move outside of London just to actually, you know, explore a little bit more of the UK, get to widen my network a little bit more as well, rather than just like stay in the same area that I know. So I was always planning to move out of London anyway. So then I thought, actually, hold on. If the decision that I'm going to make there is actually counter to the decision that I'm going to make now, which is to remain comfortable and stay with my friends, then actually, how important is it to actually remain with my friends over like a year or two? You know. So I did actually think about that, and I thought actually the second thing that I actually factor in is like my own, I guess, in a sense, the impact to my own character and what that'll do for me as well. So I could already see that actually this decision wouldn't actually live up over 3 or 4 years, because to be honest, once you start making decisions about university, it's nice to know that maybe your friend might be going to the same university, but you don't choose the university because of them. You hopefully choose it because of the course that you want to go on, and then your future career. And then wherever that
yeah,
future career takes you, it probably ends up furthering you even further away from your direct friends, unless you all want to do the same thing, which is very unlikely. Um, so I was able to get rid of that decision from that, but also the second thing is like my own actual personal growth and the impact it has on my own character as well. So I did think about London Academy of Excellence, and I did actually think about, well, putting myself in that environment, how does that actually change me compared to the current environment I'm in? And I sort of weighed up the two, and I actually realized that there's actually not much benefit anymore staying in the current environment I'm in over actually changing and seeing what could happen. So I already did have some preconceived beliefs about what LAE would be like. It'll probably be full of like extremely nerdy people. I was right about that. It'll probably be full of people that actually um like to the book and like really study hard. I was right about that as well. But what I was probably wrong about, which I discovered, was that it was actually full of extremely motivated people as well, that actually had very big dreams and aspirations, that actually came from areas that, you know, don't have these dreams just put on a plate for you. They actually have to work for it. And I actually was able to learn that. And I actually learned that actually some of the people that were there were just like me. You know, they came from a lower economic social class, and they were just working extremely hard to try get to where they wanted to be. And actually putting myself in that environment, even though I learned that from before, was actually much better for me, because I actually was able to connect with people that were similar to me, more similar to me than the friends that I had developed over, you know, secondary school. So I think that's how I make my decisions. I think it's based on two things. Like, does the decision hold out over like maybe 5 years? Do I make that decision every single time in some sense? And then the second one is, in terms of what I can get from making this decision, does it hold out as well for what I want for my own personal growth and the impact that I want to have on my own personal growth
So
as well?
does that kind of mean, with that, have you then kind of mapped out in a way your personal growth that you want to see for yourself? Do you kind of have a preconceived notion of the person that you want to become?
Yeah. So I think that definitely helps navigate me. I mean, when I was 16, obviously it wasn't as mapped out as it is now. But I could still see that I actually probably want to be someone who goes to, you know, a top university, who achieves excellence in what I'm doing. And I realized that at that point, actually staying where I am probably wouldn't allow me to do that. And actually going somewhere with minds that were probably similar to me would allow me to do that. So it was sort of about weighing that up. And then now it's sort of, well, I know where I want to be probably in 5 years, and making decisions based on that, basically.
So, and right now you still try to make decisions based on the next 5 years.
Yeah. I would say so. Like, I think for me, probably the biggest parameter is, does the decision hold out over the 5 years? Like, is my life going to, like, am I going to make that same decision every single time? If next year comes around and I was faced with the exact same or similar situation, do I make the decision again? So, like, just like a example, I guess I could say, you know, remaining in Bristol rather than moving to London, you know, like, next year, do I make that same decision? Like, obviously, saying all factors remain the same, let's say, do I make that same decision based on the situation that I'm in? The answer is probably yes, based on the situation that I'm in. So it's like understanding that the decisions that you have an impact for long term, and you should probably think long term, I guess. That's how I kind of try and measure it out.
So if all factors are the same, and right now you said, if next year all factors are the same, would you still stay in Bristol? The answer is probably yes.
Mm.
If the answer was no, would that change your decision for this year? Or would you have to do some type of sit down and think about why the answer would change? Or would it just be, the answer is not no next year, it should be no
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I guess, so it
Wait,
is a bit of complexity.
that was a question.
So
That was a question. Do you understand
yeah,
the
yeah.
question I'm asking?
So you're asking if
If
the answer is no.
if it's
Yeah.
no for next year,
Yeah.
does that mean the answer is going to be no for this year?
No, not always. And that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. That's what I'm saying. Interestingly enough, there is some complexity to it, I guess, because
Okay. Sorry.
actually, sometimes it's because of my personal growth as well. So that's why I said it's the two factors, really, the two like main factors.
Okay.
So, like, for example, all factors remaining the same. So for the decision metric, I would say, like, to make sure that it goes through for the 5 years, I have to kind of assume that all things stay the same, I guess. So, like,
Okay.
if all things stay the same, do I make that same decision, like, to stay with my friends, let's say, in sixth form? And I think the answer's no, just based on the trajectory of where my life was taking me, because I would ultimately know that there's going to be drastic changes over the next 5 years anyway. Whereas now, when you're in a more stable career, that decision metric actually makes more sense. So, like, let's say you're 25 and you're a lawyer. You know, in 5 years, you could probably still be working at the same firm if you wanted to. You know, you could get a few promotions, you could stay in the same area. So it's a bit more stable, I'd say. So for that decision one, but the personal growth one is also a big impact to the decision as well. So sometimes I actually want the answer to be no, like next year, based on where I want to be. So if for example I'm saying, I want to, I don't know, I do want to, like, based on my own personal growth, I do want to head back to London, let's say, and I want to do finance, for example. Let's just pull like a random thing out of the bag. Then what I would be doing is hopefully between now and next year, upskilling myself, training myself, so that I can actually get to the answer, get to where I want to be. So my personal growth is also factored in, I guess, and where the direction that I want to actually take my life. So it's like the two metrics I would say that I use. So yeah.
Okay. You just gave us a topic for another day that we'll discuss. Just, we can't get into it right now, but how do you know who you want to be?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, we'll explore that
sure.
another time. Is there anything else you want to go explain further on how you make your decision?
Yeah, I think I've sort of explained it quite nicely. I think if it's to be simple, it's really, do you make the same decision, over like the next sort of 3 to 5 years, and you're faced with the same sort of predicament in the same situation? Do you make that same decision? And then also, in terms of your personal growth and where you want to go, does that decision actually align with that? So I'll say it's in simple terms, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, in contrast to yours, I would say mine is a lot more rigid. So my decision-making process is, does it help me to get to where I want to be in, you say 5 years, I say 10, 15, 20 years, especially when I was younger.
Yeah, okay.
So I have like an end goal. And my decision-making process is, does this decision help me to get to that end goal? Sometimes, was there a time frame? I don't know if there's a time frame.
Yeah.
But it's, let's say I want to have X amount net worth by the time I'm 40. So the time frame changes every year as I get older.
Yeah.
But does this decision help me to get there or increase my probability of getting there? And so with my decision to go to Bristol for university, I made that decision based off, do I need to change as a person to achieve my dreams? Yes. So do I stay in London, and does that help me achieve my dreams? I would say that was less likely. So it was more likely that I will change and become the person I needed. And that's why I decided to move to Bristol. Did I make the right decision? As of right now, I would say yes. I don't know what the opportunity cost could have been of staying in London. Maybe I met some rich banker's daughter and we're dating right now, or something like that. But that didn't happen. But in terms of me becoming the character I think I need to be on my journey to achieving my dreams, that's how I made the decision, and I think it's going well so far. My inspiration comes from the Batman, famous character that many people know. I know you, the listeners, are probably laughing right now. Any one of my friends or family watching, they're probably laughing right now too. But yeah, I grew up watching a lot of Batman cartoons and the Batman movies, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, The Dark Knight. And he essentially always did what he needed to do to achieve the mission. In one of my favorite cartoons, Young Justice, he said, all that matters is the mission. And that's a big thing for me. When a really big life decision comes up to me, I kind of have that in my head. All that matters is the mission. Do I go to this social conference and network? Does it help my mission? If I'm not sure how it can help my mission, and there's an alternative that I think yes, this could definitely help me more. I'm picking that one. This one might be
Yeah,
more
yeah.
fun and I might enjoy it more today.
Mm,
It's essentially like, do I want to go to a house party or do I want to go to a networking event? I'm
mm.
going to the networking event because that's what helps the mission. True, I could meet someone at the house party. People have told
Yeah,
me
yeah.
they've met connection. That's just true, but we're talking about probability here and what's most likely.
Yeah, okay.
Um, so yeah, that's I want to say no, that's about 50% of it for me. The
Mm.
second one is something I've done since I was about 10 years old, which is retrospective
Mm-hmm,
decision,
mm-hmm.
almost like a retrospective decision making. And again, it's inspired by another comic book character. Yeah, I like comic books a lot. The comic book character is called the Living Tribunal, where he has three faces, and I believe for him to agree on a decision, all three faces have to agree, or like something like
Mm.
two out of the three faces have to agree. If they can't make a decision, he can't act with his power. Right? Very powerful character. And so the way I encompass that into my decision making is I think of myself, the past, the present, and the future.
Mm.
If I'm making a decision right now, would the younger version of me be happy with that decision? If not, if they're not happy, if they wouldn't be happy with it, why not? Would my future self be happy with the decision?
Mm.
What can go wrong? What can go right? And then how do I feel about the decision right now? And taking those three factors into it helped me to make the right decision. Because sometimes you might make a decision where in the moment it doesn't feel like the best thing to do,
Mm.
but you know it's going to help you in the future. It's
Yeah,
what's best for your
yeah.
future. Um, I admit sometimes I make decisions because even though it might not be the best thing to do right now, it's something I've always wanted to do as a child, as one of my child dreams. So I will pick it. It
Mm.
might not be the best thing in the moment, but it might be something that I wanted to do as a child,
Mm.
and the future me is going to look back with a smile, but current me isn't very happy.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still, with that, for me, I would still most likely do that thing wherever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then obviously I will still say that present me in the present has the most influence,
Mm.
but I try to do think retrospectively and in the future to make sure
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I don't I reduce the regret if I make the wrong decision.
Mm.
If I make the wrong decision and past me wanted me to do it and future me thought it would be a good idea and it was the wrong idea, the wrong decision, and it turns out to not be that good, I wouldn't personally live with regret or that much
Yeah.
regret. Because to me, I went through my trusted process. I understand why I made that decision. I got it wrong.
Mm.
It's now about how can I fix it and what can I do to adjust and pivot to make the situation better. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah. So those two things, the thinking of the mission at the end
Mm.
and the I want to say the internal tribunal combined are my two decision making process or
Mm.
combined make my decision making process.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I've got like a it might be a tricky question, it might not be. That
And
also you've also mentioned as well, like the mission as well, which is something we can talk about in the next one, because actually like how do you develop your own mission as well is also like a tough question for people that it might be listeners, because it's obviously very dependent on that. I guess would you say that like because the mission is very much dependent on your like future self, would you say you maybe put more weight towards the future self than the child, like on the retrospective one, or would you say it's kind of even? What do you say?
yes,
Mm.
yes, I would say the child probably has the least amount of power. When I was younger, I would say it was very even. As I've gotten
Yeah,
older,
yeah.
I understand why the present Paul needs the most influence. Second is the future one. and third is the child. But that doesn't negate the influence of the child to be
Yeah, I get
minuscule.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess linking it like to my one as well. I think like you've got the mission part, and I've basically got like the personal sort of ambitions part, I guess, which is very similar.
Mm.
So like, and then also the making of the same decision. So I'm trying to make the links, I guess. So like the making of the same decision, for me, like over the time period is kind of like my way of reducing regret, if you get what I mean. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that as well, around like reducing the regret that you make, um, or that you could potentially make based on, you know, the likelihood of something being just like
Yeah.
an off decision, basically. So yeah.
Yeah. Another dynamic I didn't explain is if the present me says yes and future me says yes, but child me says no, then I have to understand and take a moment to reflect on why I've changed as a person and
Mm,
what's changed about me since I was a child to why
yeah.
me 10 years ago would have said no, but me right now and me 10 years from now would say yes. That's
Mm,
something I like to think about too. Like, what
yeah.
has changed about me so I can understand what's different, see
Mm,
my own personal growth for the 10 years, if that makes sense.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I mean, like to really link it into, I guess, the second decision I made, which was actually choosing a degree apprenticeship over.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah. So to actually,
explain how your decision making process has helped you to make
yeah,
your second decision and how you've like implemented it. Go on.
yeah. So to actually show how I implemented it, I had the option to either do a degree apprenticeship after sixth form, or to actually go and study probably something that I would have preferred to study at university, at like probably like what most would consider like potentially like elite university in the UK, and try and actually study something that I probably would have enjoyed and been good at. So I've always liked philosophy, politics and economics. So I probably would have, you know, if I had it like my way in some sense, like back then, I probably would have been definitely leaning more towards a career in academia. I was always intellectually curious, and I think actually being in LAE actually made me like that as well. I was actually able to become a person that I actually was hoping to be in some sense. So someone who could think quite widely, someone who was interested and intellectually stimulated by a lot of different things. So I think that actually was in some sense in like my heart, I guess. You know, like you got your mind and your heart. Like in my heart I was saying like probably a career in academia. And I still have that dream, to be honest. Like so something in academia, and like actually dedicating my life to research, adding to knowledge, and actually inspiring like the future generation. Um, so that was something that I was thinking about in sixth form when it came to university choices. But I decided to go with the degree apprenticeship, which for myself anyway, the sacrifice was actually choosing a subject that I probably wasn't as interested in, and some people might say like that's kind of crazy. Like why would you, but like why would you go to university? I guess I wasn't paying for it,
Mhm.
because it was a degree apprenticeship. But some people might say like why
Yeah.
would you go ahead and study something you're not like specifically interested in? Um, and actually using my thought processes and the two characters, so the decision part and also like my personal character, I think I was able to come to that decision, which at the time even me and like my present self was like, why am I doing this? But my the way I was making decisions, based on my decision, I guess philosophy, I knew that it was the right one, and to be honest, it has worked out okay. So the way I applied it was, I thought about over the next 5 years, firstly, do I make that decision like every time? And I thought over the next 5 years, like I will probably enter into a more stable situation. So obviously from 16 to 18, you're quite well, from like 14 to 18, you're quite unstable in terms of like your thought processes, what subjects you want to do, all of that stuff. Whereas like 18 to 23, 24, you're now probably sort of grounded in sort of what you want to do, and you're also more in an environment where there's more stability. So I was thinking, if I go uni now and I go on to do a PhD, which will probably take, if we assume maybe, what's it, what, 3+1 is a
Three
master's, and
plus
then like
one,
7,
and then
around
yeah,
like 2 or 3, yeah, it's like another 7 years basically. I thought, I would actually be dedicating my life to like doing this PhD and then potentially entering a career of academia. So, and it was something that I wanted to do. So I thought, yeah, that sounds great. But then, do I make that decision when I'm like 4 or 5 years in? And I just thought about it. Do I make that decision when I'm like 4 or 5 years in, and maybe everyone else around me probably is actually contributing, in my head anyway, contributing to society, maybe in their careers, and I'm still probably having to build my own academic career, and I probably wouldn't be, in my head anyway, the best professor, because I just don't have the life experience as of yet to actually inspire. And also on top of that as well, it's like there was also the money aspect as well, which is
mm,
like, do I make that decision in 4 or 5 years when all my friends are probably at this point buying houses, maybe getting married or whatever, and like I'm still like in a room studying away, like at that point with all of that around me, like just looking into the future, do I actually still make the same decision? And I actually said probably not. I would probably look back and think I probably would have liked to be like in industry, actually doing a job and like working a day job and actually getting that experience and maybe building some wealth and all of that. So, and actually to become the professor that I envisioned myself to be, like I probably wouldn't be that at that point. Um, like after, in 5 years, it would probably take a lifetime to get to where I wanted to be. So at that point, I realized that my 18-year-old self was actually maybe trying to rush the process a little bit. And just because of my passion, I was actually trying to rush to become like this amazing professor who would be able to speak like Jordan Peterson or something, which I just wouldn't be able to do without like the years behind me and the years of experience,
yeah,
and maybe even working in industry and actually getting that network. Like it's actually a full, lifetime of experience,
commitment.
and yeah, commitment and knowledge capture, to actually be able to do that. So that was the
Mm,
first one. And then also my personal growth as well. I actually realized that niching down extremely early is actually probably quite risky, because I would actually probably be not. Basically, I realized that when I was in LAE, actually having conversations with so many people who wanted to do so many different things and broadening my horizon was actually what made me very intellectually stimulated. But drilling down into this one thing, for like 7, 8 years, we're talking like from a very early stage. I didn't think that actually at that time is probably the best thing to do, because my personal growth would actually probably be limited. Whereas if I actually went into industry, learnt from people, and because the company I was going to is very large, so there was a lot of um, different people I would meet, different departments, different expertise I would be exposed to. I thought for my own personal growth, actually, even though it wasn't in the field that I wanted to be in, I would still be able to broaden my horizon and actually be able to learn a lot more and develop my personal self a lot more than just like delving into one thing extremely early. And actually now, I still think that I still need to broaden my scope a lot more before I start delving in. So yeah, that's how I used
mm.
it for the second decision.
Would you also say that with that decision that you? I remember in our previous episode, you also said that you wanted to achieve something of not having to pay for university.
Mm,
So how did that impact your decision too?
yeah, I actually genuinely forgot about that as well. Actually, so yeah, thanks for reminding me on that, because I guess that's linked to to my masters as well. So when I was actually doing my degree apprenticeship, I remember telling Paul that I actually did want to achieve some sort of scholarship or some sort of way to not have to pay for university up front, and actually be able to go to university and acquire knowledge without having to pay like a crazy amount basically for it.
Mm,
And that did factor in, because as I said, like the cost would be quite huge. to go all the way through, go from degree to master's, all the way to PhD, and then potentially get like a job, maybe as like an associate professor or like a low level professor, maybe a lower level professor that, I mean, you wouldn't even be a professor, you'd be like a reader or something. I forgot the way it works. Or a lecturer, actually. I think you'd be like a lecturer. So in terms of actually building financial wealth for myself as well, that was actually quite a big factor in the decision. And coming from somewhere that's obviously, once again, low socioeconomic background, being surrounded by people that didn't have a lot, I wanted to make sure that I actually had a solid foundation as well. And I wanted to be able to delve into my academic career without thinking about like the weight of, or the financial burden that's attached to it. I don't think I didn't think I have had the pleasure to be able to just like go straight into uni and commit my whole life to an academic career. And I knew that because my family isn't particularly wealthy. And it's not like everyone has families that can send them like £1,000 if they're running out of university funds or something. So like I didn't have that option. And I knew that would probably put a lot of pressure on my family and also on myself. So I also thought about that when I was making the decision. And like 5 years in, when everyone else is building wealth, buying a house or whatever else it is, like, am I happy with the position I'm in? Like if I was to take that path, and I just knew I wouldn't be. So I knew that the decision wouldn't actually be the same over those 5 or 6 years that I would be committed to it. And then also like a full academic career. I knew it wouldn't. But I can now say confidently that I think because of that decision, now I'm actually starting to build like some financial wealth for myself and actually starting to build up a few savings and stuff like that. I know that probably, maybe in the next 5 or 10 or 15 years, whatever it is, I'll actually be in like a very comfortable position to be able to say that actually, yeah, now I can actually go on and do this thing. So it was more of a decision to put it on hold, rather than like completely cut out my life, let's say. But it was quite a hard decision for me to actually realize that I had to put it on hold because I did really want to do it at that time.
Is the decision to put it on hold and not cut it out of your life due to the fact that it's part of the personal growth you want to see of yourself?
Yeah. So I also have to acknowledge the fact that as part of my personal growth, I do think that a teacher does actually have, in my opinion anyway, does actually have the most noble career, in the sense that they are the only career, I guess, that actually completely shares and completely gives everything back that they've acquired throughout their life. It's the only career that can actually probably allow you to do that. Rather than, yeah. So like even like doctors and stuff, yeah, like obviously, but you need teachers to actually teach that profession. And I think really everyone, in my opinion, everyone should aim to give something back. Like when you're old and grey, you normally hear like older people saying, like, teaching their personal stories or talking about their personal life and teaching some of the lessons that they've learned. I think it's natural to actually want to give back the knowledge and pass it down to someone as well. So I think committing your life to it is actually very noble, to say like all of this knowledge that I'm acquiring, that I've actually paid for, like I've actually had to live through all of this knowledge. I'm actually just going to give it back to you for free, or like in a lecture. Like obviously the students are paying, but you're actually committing your whole life to actually just generating new knowledge and then giving it back to society to do something with it. So yeah, I do think it's a very noble career. So for me and my own personal growth, I would actually like to do something like that, as a noble calling, let's say.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
You make my second decision that I'm going to share with the people seem like it's just pancakes.
Pancake.
Yeah,
Nah, bro.
thank you for
Like,
that.
just...
All right, so I'll start now. Um, my second decision that was very difficult for me to make was I got a job offer for my dream job, my dream graduate job, but I had to wait over a year to start it.
Mm.
And 4 months into the waiting, I then was called to told. I was then given a phone call by the company to tell me that they were going to have to push it back and it'd be over a year again. And both times it was a difficult decision for me because of how much of my life would be put on hold waiting for this job. It felt like, what am I going to do to fill the time when I could go somewhere else and make steps of progress towards what I want to do? If you guys remember, I said everything is about the mission. So I had to weigh up, for the mission, is it better to stick to plan A, be patient? You know, the saying, patience is a virtue. Be patient and get the job I wanted, the company I wanted, and follow my career path like I'd already planned? Or do I tell them to stuff their job offer and that who's waiting that long, find another way into the industry, work my way up, and then follow like plan B, C, D, or E? And so I decided to wait. And the reason I decided to wait is because, one, technically they hadn't taken the offer away, and I had confidence that they would still come through with the offer and I eventually would be starting the job. Two, the mission wasn't aborted, it was just postponed. And it was still, it's, even though I've had to wait a long time, it's still achievable within a certain time frame that I'm happy for, depending on how dedicated I am. So then that's down to me. Once I start and I'm fully dedicated and I give my best, I still believe the time frame that I want my goals to be achieved can still be achieved. And then three, I then thought about the internal tribunal within myself. So I thought about me in the past. When I was first told about this industry, this job, and this company, I thought it was unachievable for me and I wouldn't be able to do it. I knew I was going to push myself to try, but I thought my chances were definitely less than 50-50. So the fact that I had received an offer, my past self was ecstatic and he was happy to wait. Like, he was thinking to himself, this is what you wanted, why give it up? My future self thought to me, if I wait and I join the company, this is the easiest path to success once I start. So why make it difficult for yourself? Because if I go another pathway, I could end up somewhere I don't want to be, or in uncharted waters. I don't know where I could be. So that's my past and my future. My present self was the most unsure, because I asked myself, what am I going to do to fill the time? What am I going to do? How am I going to develop over the next year or so, like mentally and like my social skills and that kind of stuff? So it was a difficult decision to make. But I think after some time, when I realized that, like I said, the 2 out of the 3 said I should essentially wait because it was the perfect situation just delayed, I decided to wait. I'll be honest to the listeners and the people watching, I am still waiting to start. I am starting this year very soon. Patience is a virtue.
Patience is a virtue.
But I am going to be starting soon, and do I regret it? No. I do feel like I have missed out for the last year and a half on doing certain things that people my age can do. But I still feel that I'm on the right path and the path that I want to be. So I wouldn't say that I regret it as such. And I'm looking forward and I'm excited. And I can still see myself in 10 years' time being where I want to be. So I don't actually feel like I've lost anything. Yes, I have lost time, but in the last year and a half, I have enjoyed myself with the bit of downtime that I've had.
Yeah,
I've had a bit of downtime, and I know that soon I'm gonna be working very, very hard. So it's like, okay, enjoy my time now, but I'm ready to get stuck in once I do start.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's how my two factors, remembering the mission
Mm,
and the internal tribunal, have helped me to make that decision. And yeah, I don't have any regrets. I still think I made the right decision. And yeah, I'll let you guys know how it goes in the future.
yeah,
Maybe
100%.
revisit this topic a different. Maybe
Yeah,
we
no, for
revisit this
sure.
topic in the future, and
Yeah.
I might have some bad news to say it went wrong. But
Mm,
even if I did, I don't think I'd regret it because I feel confident in the decision that I made because I
yeah.
used my process to make it. If anything goes wrong in the future, I just have to pivot and adjust
Mm,
in the moment because sometimes you can't predict everything.
yeah. No, I think it is nice actually to revisit it, just to see like where things are going. But I actually find it interesting that actually both of the decisions that we made, like the second ones, were actually kind of like very similar when it comes to putting something on hold or like waiting for something. Um, I feel like actually most of the listeners probably make decisions that either you're putting something on hold or the second thing is it's gonna lead to like a drastic change in direction or trajectory of your life. Those are normally like what decisions are doing. They're either like stopping you or they're gonna like completely redirect you. Most of the decisions that either are accelerating your path forward or like are like very simple low level impact decisions in your life, you can make those very quickly because it's kind of a no brainer. If something's going to accelerate you forward, like yeah, obviously I'm going to do it. It might like take more intensity or it might be harder, but if it's accelerating you towards your goal or like the character that you want to become, like for both of us, then obviously you will take it. Or if it's like a very low level impact decision, like what I was talking about, I guess, with my first decision, like with staying comfortable or like going somewhere else, like low level impact in terms of the trajectory of your overall life, then it's quite easy to make as well. Um, but yeah, I think
Mm.
the actual examples that we used are actually very good for the listeners because one actually was changing trajectory and also this one was actually putting something on hold. And like
Yeah,
those two things can actually be very hard to make decisions on, especially if they do have like a big impact on your life.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, they can cause you to have sleepless nights and
Yeah.
leave you, watching TV, but you're not even watching TV.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for real. Yeah, no, that's true. It's true. It's true. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, like we hope that actually listening to the two ways that we like think about decision making, especially when it comes to like big ones, actually helped you. And definitely leave in the comments as well, like what are the similarities between like how we make decisions, how maybe you make decisions, but also like what you might do differently as well, to make decisions as well for I guess the trajectory of your life. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
thank you. Have a great night. Have a good day, guys.